Hi, this is Dr. Scott, and today we're going to get into End the Fed series. And I'm going to intersperse this between other things that I might be talking about. Why does President Trump and Howard Lutnick, they're both billionaires, but he's the Commerce Secretary. Why do they keep talking about 1870 to 1913? And I'm going to show you this clip. I've already shown this to you guys before, but I shortened this clip out a little bit more. And I mean, it keeps coming back and bugging the snot out of me because you guys need to be bugging about it too because they're talking about it. And I keep telling you guys, if you don't believe in this stuff that about the end the Fed stuff, then you have to ask yourself, why are they talking about it? Let me explain. So listen to this shortened clip here, okay? Backing it up here, so bring it up.
So, making America great again is one of the key statements, and people don't always understand what you mean. So, we always talk about 1870 to 1913.
Wait. I want you to listen to it again.
So, making America great again is one of the key statements, and people don't always understand what you mean. So we always talk about 1870 to 1913.
Like 1870 to 1913. Okay, so I'm kind of a minor historian, okay? And I would say if I sat in front of you dates and let's just say you had never thought of End the Fed as a conversation. And I said, 1914 to 1918, you'd go, World War I. Okay, good. And then I said, 1938 to or 1939 maybe to 1945, you go, World War II. And if I said to you, 1776 to, even, gosh, maybe as much as 1783 or so, you'd say, well, that would be like Civil War, right? But if I said to you like 1870 to 1913, you'd be like, what? I mean, what does that have to do with any necessary portion of history? You'd say, well, okay, so the Civil War is 1865 or 1860 to 61 to 65, right? And Lincoln is killed right after his second term. He comes into a second term. He's not even been barely inaugurated in April of 65 because they would do inauguration a little different dates than we would do it at this time frame, right? And so he's killed in the theater. Sorry, got something caught up in my throat there, and he's killed in this theater, and there's a lot of interesting stories behind him, and yet, so the Emancipation Proclamation of the Amendment 13, it has passed under his leadership. Then we have, and I'm going to show you this one, the 14th Amendment that comes up, okay? So the 14th Amendment, and there is a bunch of cool things in here. This is when they did the amendments, compared to a lot of the silly things specifically under Obama. Obama would put through bills specifically under his time frame, and they would be 1,000-page bills, and they would literally put them in 2 days before, and they would say you'll read them after you pass them, which is completely erroneous in the way that you would accomplish that. Sorry, I was trying to wipe something out of my eye. This is the fourth section. When most semi-historians, and the reason why semi-historians, I say it that way as kind of a slight, is that they call this kind of they push together the 13th and the 14th Amendment together, and I kind of go, you guys don't really pay attention to the cool portion of this. They call it equal protection and other rights, and I go, you haven't spent enough time on it, because the third section talks about election issues. The fourth section has nothing to do with equal protection in ways. The validity of public debt in the United States authorized by law. So, okay, wait a second. Public debt. What is public debt? It was shot across the bow in 1868, so pre-conversations that Howard Lutnick is talking about, including debts incurred by the payment of pensions and bounties for services. What? That would be anything of war debts. And I'm going to explain that one in a little bit here, okay? Suppressing insurrection and rebellion. So any kind of war issues shall not be questioned. So, like, they can't bring up a war. Neither the United States or any state shall assume any or pay any debt or obligation incurred in the aid or insurrection or rebellion against the United States, or claim any loss or emancipation of any slave. By all such debts, obligation, and claims shall be held illegal and void. And sometimes when you read some of these language of the 1800s or the 19th century, they kind of smack you as like, oh, it kind of messes with you. Basically what it says is you don't even have to deal with it. And when we see the debts of the Federal Reserve, or the way that the Federal Reserve writes things, I would submit to you they were and they are debts that we should never have to pay for. That's why I keep saying to you, the debts that the Federal Reserve does and the way that the IRS does things, they were never meant to be something that should be slavery that we should be living under. Watch this other video, and then I'll come back and talk about a fascinating another point here.
1913, the American people had direct veto power against spending policies of the federal government, because in order for the federal government to borrow any money, it had to go to the people. There was no central bank it could go to. It had to sell bonds. If you didn't want to go to war, you didn't buy the bonds. If you didn't want this pork project that the government had in mind, you didn't buy the bonds. It was a very simple system, a Republican system whereby you had veto power, economic veto power. And it worked very well until 1913. That's how come government managed to stay small, because it didn't have an unlimited credit line to go on a shopping spree for 80 years and make you pay for it. So in 1913, there was this convenient new arrangement made. The Federal Reserve Act created an unlimited credit line for the federal United States government to borrow directly from the Federal Reserve Bank, and obligated the American people to pay it back, completely bypassing what was our veto power, and they no longer had to come to us directly to ask permission to fund something. They went directly to the bank.
It's such a fascinating conversation right there. I want to show you, there's a audiobook I'm listening to at this very second, and I'm going to kind of click over, sorry to pull this back here. We're going to kind of click over. I'm going to recommend it off the book, off the cuff here. Secrets of the Federal Reserve by Eustace Mullins. It is, shoot. What is the date of it? I don't even know the date. Sorry, but you can find it. You can listen to it as an audiobook. It's very, very, very. Now, I will say, audiobook by John Riddle. I don't like the reader of this, but it is a very well researched book. Okay, it is incredible. But and I've studied these things very closely and never seen as much really good information as this is presented with it too. But one of the things that I found, and I'm going to make this a lot easier to read as much as I can here. And a friend of mine actually sent, or one of the followers, friend of mine, actually sent me this. I had been talking about this particular act, and this is when they passed acts, and I was making a comment just a few minutes ago about acts. See, when Congress would pass an act, they would do it, and I want you to see, without getting into it, notice that this is sucker is only like 4 pages long, right? 4 pages long. So this is 1871, February of 1871, the 41st Congress, the third day of session, right? And you're going to read this. So this is for the District of Columbia, so D.C. Okay, and you read it and you go, what is this? And the Committee of Conference disagreeing of votes of the 2 houses of amendments. And you're like, what? So Senate 594. And I'm like, okay. And in section 1, line 6, after the word Columbia, by which we'll name this Constitution a body corporate for municipal purposes. And I'm like, okay. And then it says in this section here, it says in section 2, we we'll strike out the word reside and shall have resided. And in the word district, we'll see 12 months before the appointment. And it says in this one, word consisted, strike out, and we'll say the word and. And in and it says offices. And then it says word members, of whom 2 shall be residents of the city of Georgetown. And it goes on and on of this, okay? The word respectively will be the word at or that, right? And it keeps going on like this. And I have a degree in English, and I was reading this, and I'm going, this sounds like something like one of my English professors you would send back to me. Not in that same way, but it was that same kind of thing. And I kept reading it over and over again, and I'm going, what was this? And what I started to realize is this is just the English way of changing the Constitution of the United States. What it did is it changed what it did, and talks about for misbehavior of the President of the United States. And I was like, what? And so it talked about relating to and avenues, and the words United States in the District of Columbia, the property holders. So 1871, right? And avenues and alleys and bridges and roads and sewers and owners and specificity, specially, the sum of, and it talks about like how it would do it. And it's all government for the District of Columbia. And so you see this kind of information, and it was done by a couple different, managers for the House, managers for the Senate. And you're going, what the heck is this, right? And why would they put this? These are the top dudes for both the House and the Senate. And you're going, why is this important? First off, it goes after this time frame of 1868. It happens in this time frame of 1871. And what it is, and I term it, and when I talk about this, I talk about this as you got to use my mouse in the right way. It's the terming of the corporation. You've heard this many times, but this document is the corporation of the United States. See, when the Kabbalists talk about the Constitution, this is what they're talking about, the Constitution of the United States. Because what it does, in essence, instead of, and I just want you to, I'm just bringing out two different books. Okay, these are two of my books here. So when they're talking about the Constitution, they're talking about this black book over here, not our Constitution. See, when you think of the Constitution, it's like you're saying, well, it's this one over here. They're thinking of this book over here, right? And so when, for instance, Sheriff Mack has come on my show many times, and one of the things that he sells is he'll sell, and it's very cheap. It's like a couple dollars, and you can buy from him, the Constitution. So he'll send out, the Constitution, the amendments, and different things, and you can get this from different people, right? And you go buy it at different bookstores, and you can see it, the Constitution. Now, if you're not careful, you don't even know if you're reading the Constitution of the United States or the Constitution for the United States. Does that make sense? And you go, so what? But when you have the Constitution of the United States, what that's doing and talking about is it's all for the corporation through Washington, D.C. And what that does is that it puts out at the same exact time frame of 1913, it created the Federal Reserve. In the same year, it created the IRS and created the corporation. What they did at the same exact time frame is they laid the foundation to create and if you read, if you listen and read anything about the Federal Reserve, did you know that when we had the gold-backed currencies, did you know that if we sent it across the ocean and we sent our money, do you know that they didn't care about our money around the nations? The Rothschild banking, the central banking, they derisively looked at our money and said, so what? We don't care about your gold-backed currency because we have central bank fiat currency. And they would flick it away because what fiat central banking currency is all about loaning money back and forth. And even before I understood what the Federal Reserve and central banking was, even before I even knew what it was, I knew that World War I was one of the fakest, weirdest beginnings of a war in the history of the world. It made no sense. And when you understand that what the Federal Reserve, what it was doing is trying to create a new revenue stream for the whole world. And so what they did is that we, as Americans, loaned a whole snot load of money, a running ton of cash to the rest of the world, and we created a scheme to bankrupt huge portions of the world. And the bankers figured out how they could make a ton of money off of the rest of the world, and they found a scheme to just wipe out the world. And they found a way to create a scheme where they could create debt slaves of all the world. And what would happen is they would create the scheme that after the debt circumstances, so they would start in 1913 and it would happen over and over again that they would go through debt situations. So you would be on debt and then you would have to flush the debt out. And that's why, go back to this one thing here.
So, making America great again is one of the key statements, and people don't always understand what you mean. So, we always talk about 1870 to 1913.
When he's talking about that, they are talking about ending the Fed. They're not saying it in front of your face, but you're not hearing it exactly in the way that you think that you want them to. I know you're saying, please say you're gonna you're gonna end the Fed. When we end the Fed, we end the IRS. When we end the Fed, we go on to a gold-backed currency. When we go on to a gold-backed currency, we end the debt cycles. When we end the debt cycles, we end all of the debt of the Federal Reserve issues, the $37 trillion. We end all the other debt situations to the people, meaning all the debts that have happened in the fiat debts. It does it all because they're all unsolvable. And you go, yeah, but that's just never going to happen, Scott. You're just barking up the wrong tree. They know it. They have said it. They keep talking about it. Why do they keep talking about it? Because it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. I hope that helped you out a little bit more. Thanks so much.